Hi, and welcome to the Cosmic Prayer. Another week and another super inspirational guest to explore. That's here to explore the nature of prayer and how prayer has affected her life and continues, of course, to affect her life. Reverend Diane Scribner Clevenger is an incredible way shower for all of us. She's very active with her ministry and her ministering, and also the way that she believes prayer can really change and transform our lives. And she does this by showing up regularly, praying online with her community to inspire a better life, a deeper understanding of life and a more fulfilled life. So I'm just really excited to welcome Reverend Diane here today on the Cosmic Prayer. I know that you're tuning in from New Mexico, and it just feels so great that you're here. Wherever we are on this planet, we get to join together heart to heart.
Thank you,
and show
Laura.
up and share. Thank you for being here, Reverend Diane.
My pleasure. My pleasure. And I'm actually not in New Mexico. I'm in Mexico.
You're in Mexico? Okay, I need to get my Mexico and New Mexico.
New Mexico is a state in the U.S., and this is its own country, right? Further south.
Well, welcome. I know that you're in Mexico on an extended giving a retreat and doing something very powerful, giving powerful work there for Namaste Village and the people that are there and the ministers that are going to be coming there in the next few weeks. And I want to thank you for everything you do. I discovered you a couple of years ago, or maybe not that long, maybe not as long ago as that, but I know that you're very present online with your prayer ministry, and you show up praying all the time. And I'm interested, what was your inspiration for that? What is your inspiration for this, for your prayer ministry?
Oh, my
for your prayer ministry. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, I started Pray Attention Ministries 11 years ago when I was living in Virginia, and I was the senior minister of Unity of Roanoke Valley in Virginia. And a beautiful community, 26 acres on top of a mountain, just out in Roanoke, Virginia. Yeah, in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So these ancient mountains of Virginia. And it was at that time that I realized that I really wanted to have another ministry, a church without walls, as well as a pulpit ministry at that time. And so it's been 11 years since we incorporated, and Unity took me on as an alternative unity ministry. So we're just like a satellite church, if you will, but it's my ministry is global, of course, this particular ministry. Yeah.
Oh, this is incredible. So at that time, were you when you say it was without walls, what were you doing then to share? Because now we have so much technology and social media. 11 years ago, well, maybe there was, but it must have been a different way that you were showing up.
You know, I was of course in the church itself with a regular job, but whenever I would go to guest speak or do, as you're saying, retreats. And I would go into another country. I had a very global ministry at the time. We were doing a lot of mission work. So we sent, I think while I was the senior minister at Unity of Roanoke Valley, we sent 6 groups, 6 times. We went to Honduras, we went to Costa Rica, we went to Peru, and I was on a documentary film team in Nepal as well during that time. So I was carrying this, really the admonition that the Apostle Paul, the disciple Paul, gave us in the book of Thessalonians when he said, pray without ceasing. So the other translation, of course, is pray constantly. And I thought, what in heaven's name does that mean? Because then prayer must not be a, kind of posture that we take on for maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the day. It must be something else. And so that was what my investigative sort of thought pattern was as I went into Pray Attention Ministry, thinking that, we spend so much time frittering away our energy by paying attention to this fact or that fact or the television or, whatever is going on that can cause us to go into entropic thought patterns. And I thought, well, okay, yeah, there's the negative and the positive in this yin-yang magnetic universe. And what did Paul mean by pray constantly? How can we do that? And what I realized is that he was asking us to pay attention to our lives, to every thought, every word, and every action that we take along the way in the midst of what can seem like a chaotic earth experience.
Wow, yes. It's just what's come to my mind here is this feeling that when we set an intention or when we have a viewpoint, and we're very opinionated about that viewpoint, and it could be an earthly realm kind of viewpoint of, rather than leaning into our spiritual nature, and we're arguing for our limitations all of the time with certain viewpoints, and then where we put our attention, that's obviously going to expand into our experience. So for you, does that kind of prayer is like an for me it's like this interrupting the fog of all the stuff and the mass consciousness, and setting a new viewpoint intentionally.
Yeah, I hear you, absolutely hear you in that. And I think it's also that we've held a very old belief about prayer being something different than living our lives. So like it can be an interrupt, a pattern interrupt, to pay attention. Yes, and what I hear Paul saying in Thessalonians is really, it's the two scriptures on each side of pray constantly, pray without ceasing. He says, rejoice evermore is the scripture that precedes it. And the scripture that comes right after it is, in everything, give thanks. So that, scripture does that sometimes. Like, well, if we find something, we go, what does that mean? We can look at what precedes it and what comes after it to get a better contextual understanding. And so it's this attitude of gratitude that's spoken of so often in New Thought, having that altitude of attitude from which we see things that, if this is a tough time or something's difficult, actually, I'm moving through this into something else. And to just, with that knowing, to give thanks that, oh my gosh, if this is really a tough time, then something greater is happening. There is we're like pieces of coal and we're rubbing up against each other. Perhaps it's a difficult conversation that we're having, or we're talking about a subject that we've sidled around and not wanted to face. That in that rubbing, we are in fact becoming clearer vessels and more diamond-like. But it's not that the radiance isn't already there. It's already there, but we're just clarifying it with other thoughts and other opinions. And I think from a social perspective right now, we're becoming more and more aware that is in fact why we're able to more globally communicate. There's recognition that we're not localized beings. We are one family. And this global experience is here to cause us all to shine and radiate, and hence pay attention.
Oh, I'm hearing it all, and I'm allowing this to just sink into my heart, because there's so much in there. What I was feeling, when you were saying that, is this rubbing up against. It's like where we have those new kind of shifts or awakenings, which can be on a human level so painful, because we're breaking out of and we're breaking into. Breaking free from something, and that is very painful. And what I just heard there when you were saying that is that is a prayer. That breaking out and in is in itself a prayer, because we get to expand there more fully.
Oh my gosh, you use the word expand. That's so perfect, because when you look at the metaphysics of heaven, or the kingdom of heaven, what it means or can mean, to bring us sort of pop us out of some anthropomorphic, finite understanding, is an infinition of the word, which means expansion. So the kingdom of heaven is an expanded consciousness. And what I like to, one of my prayer shops is called Being a Living Prayer. Yeah. So what I say to people is that you are a living prayer. And that so, of course, every thought, every word, every action is in fact a prayer. Yes. And we get to look at what we're intending by those thoughts, those words, and those actions, and hold closer and closer. So it's not a wrong-making thing at all. It's really saying, we recognize that on the human plane, there is this idea of binaries, this right thinking and wrong thinking, and we are invited into that Rumi-esque field, out beyond wrong thinking and right thinking, beyond wrongdoing and right doing, and we meet each other in that field. And I believe when Paul said, pray constantly, that's the field, right? That's the place in us that he's inviting us to maieutically become aware of. So I use that term maieutic as well a lot in my ministry.
Can you define that term? Can you define that word or the meaning of that word? I'm just like, I haven't often heard that word.
It's M-A-I-E-U-T-I-C, maieutic. So it's beautiful because, we have birth doulas, right, to help us give birth, to breathe through the process of giving birth. And is birth a painful process? I have 2 babies that I gave birth to, and I can tell you right now, it can be a little painful. Yeah, thank you. So, we don't necessarily, though, sometimes drugs are absolutely called for. If we're going to do this naturally, what we do is we breathe into and through the process. And the one universal, right? And
I did that.
I know you did. Yay! Congratulations, Laura. Woo! Yeah, such a brave and powerful thing to do. And in fact, you were paying attention by doing that. Now, the maieutic part is that you are not giving birth. We do not give birth to something outside of us, nor do we need an intercessor, someone hierarchically that has to come in and do it for us. That when we give birth to the truth within us, this baby, this Christ of us by whatever name, then when we give birth to that light within us, it's a birthing of the light that is already there, right? That child of God is already within us, and we forget. We simply forget. So the maieutic giving forth of that is simply the remembering of the place where we forgot. And often it's covered up in some sense of fear, right? And I love the acronym in Unity. I was raised in Unity, which is a New Thought movement, of course, and I learned this kind of very sort of organizational, corporate, false evidence appearing real. It sounds like an intro to Star Trek. Like, we're moving through that false evidence. And like, whatever. When I'm giving birth to a baby, I do not want to hear about false evidence appearing real. This is real, right? And so the other acronym,
and you had 2. So you did it again.
I did it again. I know, it's crazy. And the second way of looking at that acronym that makes more sense to me and is more gentle, I think, is false evidence appearing real can be thought of as just forgetting everything's all right.
Oh. Yeah.
That we just, and I can catch myself, like, going, what am I going to do? What am I supposed to do? And it can feel scary. And so I just remember, I'm just forgetting that everything's all right. And then I can just breathe through it as a living prayer and myotically give birth to the truth that's within me. If I'll just stop for a moment, kick back, chill, and remember, I am a living prayer, and I'm here to give birth, to myotically give birth to the truth here and now, in this now moment. That's what I'm here to do as the light of God. We all are.
This is so powerful, and I mean, for anybody that's watching right now, or listening, or however you are receiving this, you know, we're here with Reverend Diane, and we're hearing so much truth and so much power. And Reverend Diane, I want to thank you for being here today, because I believe what you're saying is we all need this. You know, on wherever we are or wherever we think we are, we need more. And we need to be hearing these words, because we are going through, collectively, we're going through seeming chaos, aren't we? There's so much going on. And it's easy, it can seem easy to try and grasp onto the external, which is something that we're trained to do. We're not trained. We're not brought up to believe, you know, that we can remember who we are. Those words weren't always taught to all of us in our youth. It's something we have to take responsibility for, isn't it? To be open to saying, yeah, there's another way, there's a different way, and there's a better way.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this: when you, oh, sorry, you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that we do know.
Oh, we do know, but we...
Yeah,
but
and I think we've been taught that it is outside us, or that somebody has our answer. I think you're absolutely right. We have been taught that. And to remember that we actually do know, and that no one and nothing can interrupt our connection, individual connection with the divine. This is like, that's huge, right? Because we think somebody else has the answer, our answer, right? Somebody else has more faith than we do, or they're more connected, they're more prayerful. I hear that all the time. And what I know is that there is no greater or lesser in the kingdom, if you will. And while we can feel as human beings that we're lost, there is nothing lost, actually. Getting off the path for a bit.
Because we can't actually be outside of God.
There you go. Yeah.
Because God is omnipresent.
Absolutely.
So the lost is the humanness, the human feeling of feeling out of control.
Yeah.
Which for many, and I'm not saying that's not for me, you know, when a situation happens or when something happens that feels like it shouldn't be happening, like that rubbing up where we can pray and know this newness is coming through. But that can also be a time where, you know, if we haven't yet become aware of that, it's like that's where mental health issues take place. That's where we can delve into addiction. All sorts of things can, you know, commercialism, consumerism, social media, because that becomes a distraction, doesn't it?
It does. And don't you love that we have people around us?
Yeah.
Resources, places we can go, people we can speak with who will help us remember. You know, that there is always a way. And when we think there isn't a way, that's just a moment, a God moment. Because, I mean, when I have felt lost, it's more poignant when I recognize that I'm not lost, that I'm actually just in a different part of the path than I expected to be on. And that I can always come back to that sense of being here now. That even a breath, a moment, there's always someone you can call. As parents, as a child, I would go to my parents. And the moment, they didn't even have to say anything, because there's no lexicon, actually, for the immense largesse of us, for the kingdom consciousness of us, for that, but we bring it back into that moment. All our parents ever had to do was give us a hug. Or give us a kiss. Like, do you remember when I cut my finger and I go, oh, they go, what happened? And what happened? I wouldn't remember what happened. What did you do? And all they ever had to do was just go, oh, honey. And in that moment, I somehow, though I didn't have words for it, I didn't have technique, I didn't take classes, I didn't have seminars or, training, in that moment of love, there was a space. And I would drop into the gap between this hurt, into the connection with the divine, and that was always enough. In that moment that we feel that connection. So it doesn't take much, just a breath, just a moment to be with the divine of us by whatever name. And God doesn't work for a lot of people because God has been so misused, that word has been so misused in a punitive sense for so many of us. So, but just to feel the breath of God. Come back. Yeah. Into that remembering.
Oh, this is so... do you believe that prayer needs to be a structured kind of formula? How we're taught in Science of Mind, specifically, with Centers for Spiritual Living and we're using spiritual mind treatment, that there are these steps that we go through to bring us closer to the knowing in our hearts, that we commune and we command, and yet sometimes for me I believe, oh wow, it's that awareness that can be the prayer as well, that real deepened awareness in the moment, as you were just saying.
Yes. So I don't hold belief around this. I just know that whoever and whatever path that each and every one of us is on is bringing us to an experience and an expression of the divine. If in fact that's all that is, and if it comes to people to practice in a certain prescribed way, that's beautiful. And when they leave that prescribed way, they're leaving as living prayers. The thoughts that we think next, the words we speak next, the things we do next are as impactful as any prescribed way of sitting or speaking words someone taught us to say. I think they're beautiful, and every word of every moment we are living. And I can't think otherwise, because how could those words be so impactful? And they are. For everyone who's ever heard that in Thessalonians, it's like pray without ceasing. It's like, what? It's a conundrum for us, but no different in a way than looking at the number 13 that has gotten such a funky, rap from human beings, and saying, well, actually, it is between the numbers 12, which we've glorified as disciples and tribes of Israel, and 12 powers and all of this, and 14, which we haven't really gotten up to, but that we've dissed a number that is just as impactful, perhaps more so. And so we, as human beings, have created some kind of suspicion around that number. To me, it's a Magdalene number. To me, it's a Christ Magdalene that's taking sort of the discipleship of the divine feminine within us, that is just, in line with this empowered discipleship of those we think of as male disciples, that there is this in all of us, no matter what our orientation is, or if we came as a male or a female or whatever, that there is this unknown mystical aspect of us that we are here actually to lean into, and to know that that's not outside the realm of all that is. That's a part of it, an impactful part of it. So is that Did I go off on a tangent? Because I
did.
do.
I love your tangent. I was born on the 13th, and I'm like a big fan for number 13, because I know it's a powerful, energetic intention, that number. Yeah. So let me ask you, I'd like to ask you about your Facebook group, because you well, not about the group, but about what you do on Facebook every day, every weekday, because you show up with Pray for Attention. And maybe, actually, before we go into that, maybe Diego, if you would kindly pop up Rev Diane's website, and we can just have a look at this, because it's a beautiful website. And it really shows you and everything you're doing. There we go. Every day at 11:11 Eastern Time, you are on Facebook with your group, praying and talking about prayer and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom on topics of prayer. And you say that prayer is a verb on your website. You talk about prayer as being a verb, and I love that, because it is about action. It's not a static thing, is it? No. Where it's just like, it's like, let's move with this.
Okay. Yeah, actually, what I want to invite people to do is, and myself to do, is to just hesitate for a moment when we begin to define things. I recognized during this pandemic, and my Pray Attention with Diane at 11:11 is because I love the angelic, presence of 111. It's like power on. It's like nothing is getting in the way of this, right? So what I use to goose it, and I asked Unity Worldwide Ministries if I could, is the Daily Word. And that is this publication that we have. It's a bi-monthly publication.
Beautiful. Unity publication that was begun by Charles Fillmore.
Yes. Charles and Myrtle.
Charles and Myrtle
his
Fillmore.
wife. That's right. Yes. And so we have, just like Science of Mind, and I love Science of Mind as well, we have a daily word. And so that will be a word for the day. And since I was a little tiny girl, my mother was reading the daily word to me. And it was kind of like romper room. I don't know if in England they ever had this, but we had a television for a very short time when I was little. And then later my parents got one once I'd gone to college. So I personally don't even own a television, and I didn't grow up necessarily with one. However, when I was really little, there was this show called Romper Room, and I was in Chicago. And I remember there was this woman, Miss Connie, who was the host, like you are, Laura, of Cosmic Prayer, and she would hold a magnifying glass up, right?
Ooh.
And so, this magnifying glass. Yeah, and she would look into the television, and she'd say, oh, look, there's Laura and Diane and Diego. Oh, look, they're here with us today. And
he was on Diego.
Was he here?
Sorry, he was on Diego's just saying he was on Romper Room when he was a kid.
Thank you. See, I stand affirmed. And I always thought, whenever she said Diane, that she could literally see me, right? So there was this ability to know that we were not localized beings. Miss Connie gave us this window that if we would open our eye, right, that we'd be able to actually see, we'd have ears to hear and eyes to see, that we are all able to be fully present wherever we are. God is, and all is well. And that was sort of what I got from it as a child, was that I was a non-localized being. So to go back to definitions, I really faced a lot of my binaries this past year. And my Facebook Live programming came out of publishing my book, Pray Attention with Diane, where it is, but it's here somewhere.
Yeah, let's see a copy of it if you have it.
I don't know, it's around here
I was going to talk about your book.
Yeah. Here it is. I brought one copy to Mexico. I haven't used it here at all, but this is my Pray Attention is 5 sacred meditations, and it has downloadable audio.
Thank you, Diego.
Thank you, Diego. Yeah, and as you can see, there's sacred geometry. We went through 3 iterations with a graphic artist to get this nautilus shell. And what this is, it feels so good to us to look at something like this because it's actually the golden mean. It's the Fibonacci sequence that takes us into the depth of self, where we find that our connection is with the divine, this pearl of, that's opposite what I think. It's the pearl of great price, if you will, to be connected and to know that even when we feel disconnected, we are always, each of us, no matter how funky or how much sex, drugs, and rock and roll we get into, we are always connected with the divine. So out of my launching this, which became the #1 new release on Amazon, and you can get it through Amazon or Barnes & Noble or whatever, out of that, we had over 1,000 people on this Facebook group. And so there was oh, come on, let's keep doing this. So what I do is I use the daily word just to kind of have some inspiration, and I do this for 7 to 9 minutes, and I'm not able to do it while I'm in Mexico. So I'm also a writer, and I'm a photographer. So I've been posting on that site every day from Mexico a photograph of mine, and then the daily word, the affirmation, and some thoughts about it. And once I go back to Naples, Florida, which is my home base, I'll be going back November 4th. I'll begin doing lives again with people all over the world, and they archive, and so you can go on that site. It's free, and you just go and scroll through and see if there's a word that resonates, and watch it for the day and see how you can apply it. This is not about me. This is about I am only here. I really realize I'm only here as this tiny, 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 tiny light of God to shine with all the rest of us that are these amazing lights of God, and to create an enlightened environment where we will awaken to the truth of who we are.
This is so powerful. I'm so pleased that you talked about your book, and I love the Fibonacci because that really, for me, that the sacred geometry, which ties right back into the labyrinth as well. And this idea, this knowing of that we are infinite, that that God is infinite, and that we are a part of this, and we cannot be separated from it.
So there is a word instead of definition, right? Or deaf, which is interesting. I know it's not DEAF, but it kind of goes like, ooh, box thinking, right? Definition. Yeah. This is like, oh, I'll look that up, and I'm going to get the old story about what that has meant in the past. There's an infinition of everything, right? An infinition where there's a flowing understanding, and we are here to help each other move to the next level of that understanding, the infinition. So that's what I'm about.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So how are you, Laura, by the way, by having all these people for cosmic prayer? I mean, you're bringing on people, and everyone who's watching is in that place of infining ourselves with the divine, of goosing our relationship with what is. Thank you.
Oh, listen, thank you, because I know this was done before we even met, but I was doing the cosmic prayer before I even thought of it. Yep, so like you're saying, I just tuned in, and Reverend Robert Brzezinski said, yes, come on, let's do this. And that was during COVID, during that time, where we know that we had to find another way to serve and to reach people. Yes. And what better way than through the remembering of who we are, through prayer as a tool? Because very often my belief is that we can religiousize prayer and put it in this kind of box, in this definition of what prayer is, something that we're begging and beseeching and using as a tool to ask from a point of view of, it isn't here and I want it here, and where is it? Whereas we know that's very different, isn't it? We use prayer very differently.
Yes.
From a different place.
Exactly. And what I hope that people will do, because having grown up in unity, I've met so many people who are new into New Thought, who have come out of a paradigm that they somehow think they are being, you know, yes, growing beyond in many ways, but that they have to recover, like they're in recovery from it. And I just, my sense of God is that we're each of us given everything we need all the time, right? And that those places that we grow through in our understanding and move on to something else, that if we're able to see that there's a richness to having gone through that. The other day I mentioned this in at my Sunday service here, because that's what I do here. I just do Sunday services, and during the week we're having like an hour and a half interactive session, you know, that's fun and prayer, you know, like prayer based, but being a living prayer, not like going into some kind of posture.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that I was out dancing the other night here in Ahihik, and this fabulous woman who was doing Diana Ross and Whitney Houston, and I'm like out there dancing with this guy who was a fabulous dancer. And we have a lot of dogs here in Mexico, and I stepped right into dog do. And I mean, it was like all of a sudden I became like Michael Jackson. I could actually moon dance, you know. I was like, whoosh! I went off on this poop run, right? I did dig the slide. Like people were looking at me like, whoa, she's pretty good, you know. And actually what I was doing was stepping in dog do. So
trying to get rid of it.
Hello. So in that moment, I had the opportunity, as we all do when something goes wrong, to go like, oh man, that's so gross, and stop dancing. I did not do that. I just went, woo, you know, and I noticed that, that's dog do, and I just moved a little bit to the side, but I used it as part of my slide, you know, part of my dance, and I didn't stop. I wasn't gonna, you know, as far as I'm concerned, there's no one and nothing that can take us outside of the realm of God. So everything, everyone, no matter how much it feels like it's stinking, even if it's stinking thinking, it's like Eckhart Tolle teaching us in A New Earth, you know, since we're the light of God, each of us is the light of the world, if we just look at it, we shine light on it. And in shining light on it, everything is changed. All things are made new. And we can get through any of this. You know, some of it's stinking. It's not easy being human. Mm-hmm. And yet we are always spiritual beings. We don't stop being that when we go through that what I like to call holy shift. I love to remind people that shift happens. And it's always holy shift. It is sometimes painful. It can be horrific and horrendous. I'm not here to make light, if you will, in a oh, that doesn't matter, you know, that's not difficult, really, stop talking about that kind of way. Everything is here to help us. Do you believe that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I believe it. Not because I read it or I listen to people saying it and I think, yeah, I'm going to catch on to that concept. That feels quite good. Yeah, everything's... No, I believe it because I have lived it.
Thank you.
I made a choice to see my life and to live my life through that lens, if you like, or without that lens, without the lens, without that. So I've made a choice to know that this too is God expressing.
Yes. So actually, we go back to Miss Connie. You know, you are using your lens, and I think, you know, the universe gives us all these opportunities to essentially say, what kind of lens am I going to choose? Because I'm only responsible really for myself and how I'm perceiving things because everything's going to happen. And so many people who are new to New Thought will say something that we call metaphysicling or metaphysical malpractice. And they go like, well, what did I do to create that crappy experience? You know, it's like, it's not that. It's how will you and I respond to this experience? How will we be with this?
And
Not what I do to create it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a whole different way of being with our lives, because then there's no blame and there's no judgment. And that's the piece, isn't it? When we're judging ourselves for what we did and we didn't do it properly enough and we didn't do it right enough, and how could I have had those thoughts that brought this into my experience? And when we get to that place, I believe that this too is God expressing. So it's all here as a beautiful example of how I can be with this.
Absolutely. So yes, so if we can help others understand, and in New Thought, and we have so many paradigms within New Thought, so many paths to one God, and that includes all religiosity and non-religiosity. I imagine most of us would say, I'm not a religious person, and that I'm not like this with my life. We have that opportunity to share that you're not making things happen in the earth plane.
That's right.
It's how you respond. And so here in Ajijic last week, we had tremendous rains. I could hear them. I have a fan I run at the end of my bed, because Mexico is a place where people have an idea. This is interesting. They send off rockets. So it's like a bottle rocket that they make, and it sounds like a gun, like a big huge gun, and it's going off all night long. And dogs are barking, and because they're scared by the sound of this, and music's playing all over the place. So it's not a quiet place to be. And during this time, the rockets are going off and what have you. The other night, we were having horrendous, terrific rains. I mean, I can't remember how much rain fell, but I do know that just west of the town where I am living for 5 weeks, there was a landslide. We're in the mountains. I'm above 5,000 feet now, so we're over a mile high here in Lake Chapala. The mountains go up several thousand feet, and there was a landslide, and 70 to 100 homes were involved in this landslide, where they were covered in mud, and they lost their homes. And what I saw, if I got lost in the idea that what did those people do to create that landslide, I wonder what they were thinking, or it's a cause and effect universe. No, what I saw immediately was grace, right? So immediately we got information. We all have text here that we communicate in Namaste Village and in Ajijic through the Lake Chapala Society, saying we've opened centers for people to help. Please bring your donations, bring your zapatas, bring your shoes, bring your robas, bring your clothing, bring supplies we need for cleaning. And it was like there was a parade here of consciousness that it was saying, in essence, if you will, though the religion may be Catholic, or it may be Jewish, or it may be Buddhist, or interfaith, like the center where I am, it was, we are all in this together. How will we respond? And the love of the people. I went to the center. I've been to the center several times. Just the love of people. How are we going to be when we see all these things that we've involved ourselves in on the earth plane? That's what's shifting globally, because we know now what's taking place every single place on this planet, not just locally. Yeah, we are non-local beings here to pray attention. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, and you know what, I could sit here and listen to you talking and sharing and transmitting your wisdom for days. I could just sit here with just my food just there, and because it's not that it's the way that you're saying it and how you're empowering and inspiring me, and I know whoever is listening, to pay attention to their lives, to our lives, because this isn't a dry run, is it? We're here right now, and this isn't about, oh, I'll do it in a week or next year or as a New Year's resolution. This is right now, this is all we have in this moment.
Yeah. So yes, and that present moment consciousness is beautiful.
Yes.
The other day we were talking here, and that there's a community of about 20 that have organic breakfast and dinner together here during the week, and we were talking about, someone said, oh, wait a minute, I'm having a senior moment. And a few of us said, well, really, a senior moment? I said, my kids couldn't remember anything from the time they hit the planet. I think it's just a human condition. And it's interesting that we tell ourselves that as we age, we have this. And so what we came to was, actually, that's present moment awareness. That's like, and we don't need to make each other wrong or that it's a dis-ease to be in present moment. We're becoming more childlike. Thank you, God. And that's why Jesus brought the children to him. Not because we're being childish if we can't remember. We're being childlike. And so just, get, oh, wow, I'm having a present moment experience.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, I love that. And it's a present. It's a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
Yes. Yeah, we could just open that up and be with each other. Right. And the people, I was a hospice chaplain for 6 years, and that's one of the things, I love being with people through their death and dying. I love being a doula and helping, rebirth and unzip the misshapen body. Once you've used it up, it's time to take off. So I love that. And I love encouraging people whose families are going through any family relative or friend going through what we call now Alzheimer's, dementia, old age, whatever. Really this youthening process that we go through of letting go possessions, of right sizing, as we let go of the sense of having to have stuff, and less, and feeling the sense of, actually, I have right here, all I need is right here. And we don't allow ourselves, or haven't yet been telling ourselves the story that actually we always have more than enough. And so just be with them. If I say, oh, I can't remember, you as my doula can say, oh, you know what? I haven't remembered so many things so often. Isn't that funny? And we can laugh together, and we can say, well, what should we do now together? How can we feel the breath of God? Do you want to just breathe? Do you want to pray? Do you want to have something to eat? Shall we take a walk? And just be present to each other through this process. I love that. That to me is praying attention.
I love that too, and I love it that you're giving permission. We don't have to be a minister, we don't have to be a practitioner, we don't have to have any kind of formal qualification for this. This is our humanness. This is deciding in our humanness to expand and be present for those in our communities, and to be the vessel of love, and to be that container to hold that love, that loving space of non-judgment. We all forget things. I mean,
yeah. So that's
Thank
beautiful.
you so much, Wayne. I know is leaving messages here. Yes, Wayne, absolutely, you are enough. You are enough, Wayne. And Christine, I know from Kenya, has been watching, and this reaches people and hearts around the world. And Reverend Diane, thank you so much for being here, and for being you, and for being so present, and for sharing with us today on the Cosmic Prayer.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it so much. It's a joy.
Really. So we can find you at Pray Attention. Your Facebook page is Pray Attention with Diane.
Pray Attention with Diane at 11:11. Mm-hmm.
At 11:11, Monday to Friday. Thank you, Diego, our incredible producer, who's popping up the info here for Reverend Diane.
Thank you.
And your website.
I can just say that right now we're doing live services on Sunday here in Mexico,
Yeah.
and that is on YouTube at Namaste Village, and they don't simulcast it on there. But it posts. I'm not sure what the
Okay.
time frame is. It's a mañana time frame. We're in Mexico.
Ah, that's good. It'll always be the right time.
It's always the right time.
Yeah. So that's Namaste Village YouTube.
Yes.
Yes.
James Twyman, Francis Twyman, who's an Anglican priest, started this, and he wrote the Moses Code. He's written 16 books, and his bestseller, I think New York Times bestseller, was the Moses Code. And he's here. He lives right up above my casita in the tower up here. So, but he comes in and out.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And we'll be having Unity ministers living here in this casita that I got to help organize and furnish and, hang paintings and get ready for the Unity ministers. Will be coming in basically once a month. And Johannes Hartog, Reverend Johannes, is here, and she'll be doing a service in Spanish on Sundays once this gets to be a Unity ministry. They've applied, and so they'll be going a 501c3 under Unity Worldwide Ministry. So it's very exciting.
So exciting!
There's very
amazing.
And lots of CSL ministers are here in Ajijic, and of course David Hoffmeister is here with Course in Miracles. They have 2 Casas de Milagros just close to here. So it's Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda came here in the 1920s, and he said that the Lake Chapala area is a vortex. It's a spirit. He saw this as spiritual community. So all kinds of New Thought people are here. It's kind of stunning.
That is beautiful, and it's wonderful to know that you're seeding into that and allowing this consciousness to be shared, and spiritual mind treatment. That's what we're going to do. Yeah. Shall we? Let's do it. Thank you, Diego. So I'm going to start this now, and I'm just going to hand this over to you because I know that it'll be absolutely amazing. So I'm inviting us to close our eyes and turn within and just open our inner eye. Really get to that expanded knowing. This is the knowing that I know that God is all there is. And there is nothing outside of God. God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. Those words have such powerful meaning because they are the truth. This is what God is. This presence, this love, this power. The idea of God as itself that is expressing through everything, expressing through me, through Reverend Diane, through Diego, through New Thought Media Network, Reverend Robert, through everybody that is listening, whether it's now or at a later date, that I know that this is God expressing itself, individualizing through each of us, showing us who we truly are. And as I open up to this knowing so deeply and expansively in my mind, I know that this is love. This is love. And as I unite with this and see this for me and for each of us, I hand this over, pass this prayer to Reverend Diane right now.
And in the passing of prayer, we are recognizing that we are each of us keepers of the flame. We are each of us holders, containers for the light of God that is always shining for our world, for Mother Gaia, our planet, our environment, the politics that are taking place, this idea of pandemic, this idea of cocooning, quarantining, all of this is under the auspices and in the presence of the living essence of all that is. As we take that sense of, and so beautiful that you said it in that way, thank you for that sense of omnipotent, of omniscience into the realm of omnipotence and omnipresence, into that realm of the verb of what it is to live and to love and to have our being in God. In the book of John, we hear those words, God is love, not a thing outside us. No force or realm or space that blesses one and curses others. That God is by whatever name, the presence. And that we as practitioners, we as the light of the world, are here simply to practice this presence with every thought, and when we forget, to come back, with every word, and when we forget, to remember, with every action, and when we do otherwise, to react, with responsiveness, with wholeheartedness, by forgiving what is ever taking place, to give something greater than has ever been given before by us. For we are that one presence and one power, manifesting, vibrating at the frequency of you, beloved, of me. And in that knowing that we are one, into that space we breathe this day together. We myotically give birth to the Christ presence by whatever name. We simply lean into the joy and love that we each are this day proclaimed. And for this, we are so grateful we reside in this presence together. We take it out as individuals and yet cells in the one body of infinite consciousness. And for this gift that you give us every moment of every day, every breath of the way, we thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
And so it is. Thank you, Rev Diane.
You're so welcome, Laura. I feel good, ba-ba-ba-da-ba, like I knew that I would now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we look forward to you coming back onto the Cosmic Prayer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love that. Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you for listening to Cosmic Prayer, your weekly shift with Laura Topper on the New Thought Media Network. If you've enjoyed this programming, please tell a friend and join us again next week for Cosmic Prayer, your weekly shift with Laura Topper.